So we're starting. You're here. I'm here. We're going for podcast questions first, because the podcast questions thread on Aeoli'S blog is the official place to ask your questions for this thing.
Yep.
And
then we have to cover the JPQ.
Mm-hmm. Say that again?
I said we have to cover the JPQ after that.
Oh yeah, we got to get that thing too. Get that down.
Definitely. It's an normie question. I think Vice had a number of them in various places.
Yeah, I've got a few from Vice. But if you're ready for this, I can start with the... whoa, dang, there's a lot of these guys. Alright, so the first one is from Cappy53, who is asking, would like a better clarification on what all the MT, TM, and the rest are. What do they mean, right? What does all of the letter combinations mean in Edenic terms, I think is the question.
Okay. So the letters are a shorthand for the long form is just saying something like Melon-head type in the back and Neanderthal type in the front or something like that. The ordering is the first letter says what the back is. So if you have a cone head, then you would be an M back. And so you could say that as like M lowercase x if you don't know what the front is or you just don't want to say.
Mm-hmm.
The second letter is the front. So an MT means Melon-head in the back, Neanderthal in the front, and typically you're referring to a person with like an enlarged parietal lobe with deep sockets. Because those are the primary determinants of those typing.
Okay.
And if you're talking about a TM instead, then that means that you're Neanderthal in the back, which means an enlarged occipital lobe.
Mm-hmm.
And M would mean Melon-head in front, which has a couple of prerequisites. It means that you have shallow sockets, and you also have retreating perorbitals, which is a term that refers to the way that your sockets are structured, so that they aren't hemmed in by bone. I think they're called bone flanges. It's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So instead of having really deep set eyes, you have kind of bubbly eyes that poke out a little bit more.
Yep. And so they're very shallow, and it generally is associated with having an extroverted sort of personality here, versus the deep set eyes are less gregarious and less socially fluid for certain.
Mm-hmm. So kind of a people person versus an introvert kind of deal.
Yep. And the original posts that this all came from were on Koanek's old blog, koaneksoul.com, which he took down, but there are still a lot of archived versions around that you can find and that we should find at some point. And there are a couple of other places where this question has been answered, which have good summaries that we could probably get more easily in the link.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure we've answered it at least once on each of the various forum iterations.
Yeah, so this is a good frequently asked questions post, or might type up a summary for the Ultragenics thing.
Yep.
Okay. So in summary, the first letter is the back of your head, and the second letter is the front of your head?
Yeah. It's the opposite of what you'd expect.
Right. Because that's how we do it here.
That's right. Got to keep it esoteric and shit.
So the Melon-head stuff, you have Neanderthal traits which are associated with different things, and the Melon-head traits which are associated with different things. And the different combinations of these kind of biomarkers indicate different personality types, possibly, maybe. Almost definitely.
And a quick summary, probably the quickest summary of the personality type differences comes from the general factor of personality theory, which splits into two subcomponents. So the Melon-head type of personality is going to be very high in general factor personality, but that could also be said of Homo sapiens and Cro-Magnon. So the real distinguishing factor is typically the second subcomponent. I think this is the beta. It's split into alpha and beta.
Mm-hmm.
And the beta component of that is high openness and low neuroticism.
Mm.
And melonheads are usually pretty high in that component. The alpha component, I might be getting those two designations mixed up, but I'm pretty sure this is right. The alpha component refers to, it's another subgrouping, right? So you have your general factor, and then this is like your fluid and your crystallized intelligence, or your subcomponents of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the other main one is conscientiousness, agreeableness, and extroversion, which is something Cro-Magnon, for example, is high in all of them. But they are not high in openness and what do you call it? And they are high in neuroticism.
Yeah.
So, if you compare that to Neanderthals are very low in agreeableness, very low in extroversion, very low in what's the other one? Conscientiousness.
Mm-hmm. So
they tend to be more of an INTP type of personality. But they are typically high in openness and low in neuroticism.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually what we found when we did that IBM Watson right-print analysis way back in the day. This is on the first forum that I was involved in. It was pretty shocking how high everybody was in openness and how low in agreeableness.
Mm-hmm.
Like taking that stuff composite, we're talking about pretty significant selection effects here. Definitely not a random sample of the population.
Yeah, I think I remember a couple of those. I think you were surprised at how low in agreeableness it said on there or something for yourself.
I certainly was with the Jordan Peterson Big 5 test. I can't remember what I scored agreeableness on the Watson thing.
But it's okay.
But I definitely was not an outlier. I was, like with a lot of things in this community, I was pretty near to the center of our distribution.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that pretty much answers that one. That was a good question. Yep. And it's a good, we definitely need to get something somewhere written down for that. So then we have Bice, who is posting on here as kind of, so this one was kind of an answer to Cappy's thing, where he had the old physiognomy picture, where he had a guy in different parts of his skull. It's like, if you have a bump on the top of your head, you've got some religion in you. If you got a football head, you got a bump on the back, you got some love, and you got some family, and you got some good stuff, right?
Right.
Some
you got
moral
the
character.
In group. You got the in group dedication.
Mm-hmm. All right. The next question is from Aeoli'S, and it's, why would someone shoot a man before throwing him out of a plane? And the answer is, he wouldn't. It's a fucking CIA op. He's just trying to get you to talk, but getting caught was part of your plan in the first place. So you're ready.
I'm glad you answered that one, because I didn't know what he was referring to.
It's Bane posting, basically. Do you remember Bane posting?
Yeah, I remember Bane posting, but I don't remember that movie very well.
All right. Well,
good.
It was from The Dark Knight or whatever, the third one, the third Batman, Christopher Nolan flick. All right. Have you packed your rice?
I have packed something like rice. So I haven't done a great job of this, but KRATMAN back in the day sent me a year's worth of soylent, which is supposedly like a powder food that you can live on just that, because it's got all of your micronutrients and stuff, all of your macronutrients in it. And I still have that, and it's very well packaged.
I pray you never have to actually eat that stuff.
Yeah, I tried it one time, and I didn't have a good. It wasn't a good time, but KRATMAN told me if you put a stick of butter in there, it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that made sense to me, you know.
I mean, a stick of butter will save a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key to most cooking.
All right, and I can answer this one too, because we recently did this because we had a hurricane in my area. So we went out and got some canned food and different water bottles and different things. So we are good at short-term preparation for incoming things, and if we had to live somewhere for 3 months, it might be a bigger issue. So maybe I have to get some 10-year rice to sit in a bucket somewhere.
Yep. So you did the minimal effort for the maximum outcome, because the more likely thing, the thing that you know is going to happen at some point in your life is that there's going to be a 2-week outage of something, and the government's not going to do a great job of getting things up and running again quick.
Yeah.
You know you can't depend on FEMA to save your life in that kind of situation. So you just gotta hit your minimum. And you could forget about like the quality of your food. Like the idea of eating Soylent for a year, that's probably not gonna make you a happy person, or
No.
High testosterone, masculine man at the end of that.
That's going to be tough.
But the same thing, yeah. It's important to keep in mind, like, you would rather have that than not if you're in an emergency situation. So it's a good time to not security spiral.
It's eating garbage versus starving to death in an emergency situation. So you're like, well, if it's this or dying, well, it is Soylent, huh? But, once you get a little bit hungrier, you'll start thinking Soylent's a better idea. Which is good, because that's when you're going to need it.
Yep.
It all works out.
And I can tell you from personal experience that eating nothing but rice will make you extremely neurotic.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't, you would probably end up just not eating very much. And really the point is just to outlast whatever the problem is. Like, let's say the entire electrical grid goes off, and everybody goes out and kills every deer in America. You just have to outlast people so that the deer population can come back, and there's only 1 million people left on the land. Like, you can share the deer at that point.
Yeah.
You just have to outlast the catastrophe. Like that Cataclysm guy from that public TV show that Liz King was always trying to get me to watch.
Oh, is that the Cataclysm, like the crazy joke one?
Yep.
I think I watched that video. That one was amazing. But
it was fun. I had to get used to it.
You just have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the other people that are running from the bear. Sorry, that's the actual thing.
Or in that case, you just have to outlast the states when they riot and burn down L.A. as everything goes out of commission.
Mm-hmm.
Like
there's no time like the present to build yourself up as like a future drug lord or something. Like, a local warlord doesn't come from nothing. There's no time like the present to get a crew together and start playing airsoft or something in the woods. And like having a medic doing fire support drills or something. But like volunteering as a paramedic or something.
Yeah, because that sort of skill is going to be important. People are going to need car repairs. There are going to be a lot of people that need help mounting things on your cars, like bikes, for when you're out looking for gasoline.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that are going to need some A-team welding a super truck together type stuff. So that stuff you can do today in like auto repair and maintenance and camping or something. You can learn some of those skills today, and they will transfer over in an emergency situation.
Yep. So that is actually part of packing your rice, although we're kind of expanding the definition. Really, you can get by on just a year's worth of rice and water filters. And in most situations, you're just not going to be happy.
Yeah.
So the more you do is just covering more of your bases.
And then you just don't advertise that shit except to people that are 3 states away and don't know where you live. So that.
Or if you're into profiting off of the collab, you could get into gold, because you might be the only person with viable money at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're in a pretty good spot. You can set yourself up as a landlord, charge the rent.
Well, a couple of people, they actually had one where this major city got surrounded by, like they were having a civil war or something, and it's like, that's okay, it's happening over there, it's not going to ever get over here. And then it got over there. 2 weeks of no trucks meant everybody was doing foraging, except they were eating rats instead of deer. And a couple
Yeah,
of people who were already more or less situated, a couple of people that had land or that had a crew or that had this or that could afford to sell, soup bowls and bags of rice and powdered eggs and shit. They could sell that and trade for gold watches and anything that would in the future conceivably be money but was useless right now.
You gotta be careful with that shit, but yeah, that's good. Like, if you're looking to profit, that's the way to do it. But you do have to be careful, like, to make sure that you have more guns than the people you're selling to.
Right. So if you have a crew of hard motherfuckers and you're careful about it, you can be like, yeah, we have a carton of powdered eggs. We'll take your car and all your deeds to your houses or something. Just sign them over and we'll get them later. And they're like, whatever, it's bombed out anyway, right? I can't eat.
Yep.
I can't eat land deeds. Whatever. I need to eat now.
And this has actually been pretty much the strategy of like the world elites from time immemorial. So there you go. You can become the Illuminati.
Yeah. If you want to ascend in a social status thing in a crisis scenario, the trick is to already be rich and prepared. So get on that before the world goes to shit. And I think that's packing your rice in a nutshell.
What's that term that means like when there's a big time component to your purchase?
I'm not sure.
It's from economics. I'm drawing a blank. But that you're basically using that in a desperate situation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we spent too long on that one. That was a very basic, and I think it was a Joker question too.
Either way, the question is answered. Nobody can say that question is not answered. We did the best answer that question has ever seen, and that it's ever gonna see. And we're going in the next one. What is the minimum number of TT or T-back females required to create tall female social dynamics? How many Neanderthal women do you get before you have the gossip in the center while the guys are working and like you should introduce yourself to that man kind of thing?
All right, 5. Okay, so I said 5.
5?
So that's partially serious and partially a joke. So my theory on that, it's important to point out, is entirely based on my own intuition, which could be entirely bullshit. I happen to think it's pretty good, and I've recently made a couple of connections which I could use, like using that as a counterfactual. I think I can make a connection between that and the personality factor I was talking about earlier, the disagreeableness and so forth, and how that bleeds over in today's libertarianism and ANCAP and all that garbage.
Yeah.
So Wi-Fi, and I'm gonna answer this one, and then I gotta turn you off and get some gas here because I didn't realize how low I was.
Okay. So we'll take a break on this, and I'll just edit the recordings back together.
Well, I gotta find a gas station first, so I'll explain why I said 5, and then I'll let you know when I gotta turn you off.
Okay.
Okay. So there is science that says, for whatever reason, that you can't have a conversation with more than 4 people in it, or it will splinter into 2 conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And this rule is apparently pretty robust. And so I am inferring from that loosely, because I'm not super confident, that the number could be something like 100. I just don't think it is. That's pretty big for like a hunter-gatherer group anyway. So if you're talking about just like turning on a different part of the brain, which says there are more people here than I can keep track of, I suspect that could be the trigger, which also turns on like something in the brain that says this is us, this is our group, this is a society, not just a couple of friends getting together. Now, if you're going to talk about the viability of getting 5 Neanderthal-leaning girls together, that is a different question entirely, and I think leads into the normie question a lot, because the question, that question is basically about whether it is, so, the Jews are asking, like, what's good for the Jews, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are Gentiles good for the Jews?
Yeah.
If you're talking about normies with respect to Neanderthal identity politics, which is kind of a meme and kind of serious, then you would ask yourself, what are normies good for Neanderthal?
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty easy to say generally no, or generally yes. So there's a lot of support for both sides of that. If you're going to say generally yes, you're coming from the position which says that the continued existence of Neanderthals in, say, the white genome is primarily a group-selected phenomenon where they don't reproduce at replacement rates themselves, but they do they make the group more adaptive as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
In comparison with Homo sapiens, sub-Saharan Africans who are pure Homo sapiens, white people have a lot of very adaptive features which come from having either the genius in the genome from these guys that pop up every now and then,
Yeah.
or just from the continued admixture, continued backbreeding into the white gene pool of primarily Neanderthal females, which is that's where the intelligence probably comes from.
Okay.
The opposing view, which says that normies are generally bad for Neanderthals, says, and I'm actually typically on that side of things, because the Neanderthal admixture in whites and in the world generally has been very steadily declining in up and down waves.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, the genotypic intelligence has likely also been declining, such that the any IQ improvements we've made since, say, the Bronze Age were probably Flynn effect, or more precisely, would have been a Jensen effect.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and there's also the much more obvious connection where generally normies do not treat Neanderthals very well. We are typically low status, and with that comes all of the nasty stuff that Elaine de Botton talks about in status anxiety. Now, the actual term status anxiety refers to the way it works, the status works in America, but the term itself indicates that if you are low status,
That's something to worry about.
It's worse for your health than having a grave illness. Maybe not a grave illness, but it's really bad for you.
It's like having the flu for an extended period of time or something.
Yeah, it just comes with all sorts of bad stuff. And you can kind of see the Neanderthal thing playing out with the two races that are higher in it, the Asians and the whites. Because, why aren't Asians considered a minority in America? They're basically honorary whites whenever it comes to the privilege stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's because they're smarter, and that's probably due to Neanderthal, but that's not the real reason, right? It's just okay to be racist against Asians. That's just the way people understand it to be. And the worst thing to be racist against is the people who are absolutely not Neanderthals, and that's African. So I would claim that that's just grades of anti-Neanderthal racism, and particularly against whites, because we're talking about a lot of it coming from Jews, and also whites have some compensating traits which don't come from Neanderthals, which make them the combination has made them more creative on the whole.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how I got off on that, so can we take a break here, and I'm gonna fill up.
All right, so we answered the what's the minimum amount of TT females required to elicit tall female social dynamics, and that was probably 5, but maybe not. And then we will continue this here in 3 seconds, but it'll be probably 3 seconds to you guys too, because I'm going to split this edited back in. All right, boom. And pause the recording. So, if I did this right, there should only be 5 seconds in between stopping that previous recording and starting this new one, and it's all in the same take. so I don't have to split 2 files together. So that's easier for me.
All right. I'd like you to edit in about 10 PewDiePie reaction shots also.
10 PewDiePie reaction shots in that little spot?
Yep.
Let me make a note of this. Hold on here. 20...
I want the podcast to be accessible to 12-year-old girls.
24... 45... Edit in... How many? 20?
Yeah, 20 for sure.
Alright, edit in 20 PewDiePie reaction shots. Spotify's asked me to find PewDiePie now. Oh, Cortana's here. Oh, thanks, Cortana. These aren't useful. You can't get rid of Cortana, but you can tell him to shut the fuck up. I can't wait for the next thing. Why telling female digital assistants to shut the fuck up is toxic masculinity at its finest.
I'm okay with that.
Sponsored post by Microsoft. Stop turning off our shit. That's
yeah, I'd be trying to turn on my phone here. I was like, nobody likes you, Bixby.
It's like, did somebody say Bixby? No. Nobody did.
Nope. Nobody ever said that.
Nobody ever said that. Go fuck yourself. It's always, I don't know, man. Technology should do what you want it to, but a lot of times it does what the corporate sponsors want it to, and it's not anywhere approaching the same thing.
Post-materialist values. They already got their money, so now they're making decisions based on non-monetary considerations.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the problem. That is a great deal of the problem with the scale thing and corporations in general.
I am in favor of going back to building more pyramids or some shit. Build a giant Trump statue. Build a wall composed entirely of different Trump statues, all interspersed with PewDiePie reaction shots. Put a Mickey Mouse on it for good measure.
Mickey Mouse eating a hamburger and giving a middle finger to Mexico.
You got Mickey Mouse with a bandana and an American flag behind him. Hamburger in one hand, AR-15 in the other hand. Both fingers making the middle finger. How he holds all this stuff, that's for the artist to figure out. That's America.
That's right.
Hamburgers and flipping people the bird and explosions and guns and Mickey Mouse.
We Supreme Court now.
We Supreme Court now. Ah, that's still really nice. It was good winning, man, because sitting a dude up and being like, hey, man, this guy who we didn't really care about for 30 years, oh, we just remembered that he was a rapist now, so these are the new rules. And it's like, wait, what? Is this going to happen to us? What the hell? If that would have been lost or they backed down on that, it would have made it really easy to be like, well, that guy resigned because 3 people remembered he was a rapist 30 years ago. You should resign too, so we could just run the country and do whatever we want. It's like, what? I don't want to do that. Well, you're a rapist now, so go home.
Yeah. It was. You remember the reality-based community thing? Way back in the day. This is Bush League, Bush era.
Oh. Reality-based community?
Yeah, that was like your Donald Rumsfeld and stuff.
I'm not 100% sure.
All right. Well, it's based on the law of attraction. If you go all the way back to like Norman Vincent Peale and that shit. But the basic idea is like when people get into power and the winner effect starts setting in and people start acting like megalomaniacs, they start to get the idea that all they have to do is speak something into reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is actually the cause of the troubles at Charlottesville, where the organizers were not able to optics cuck, as we call it now.
Yeah.
By telling that guy with the Nazi flag, dude, you need to put that away. That shit is not going to fly. They couldn't do that because in their community they got so inflated their perceptions of their own power that they thought that just saying something over and over would make it real.
Mm-hmm.
This is something to see with every person that gets a little out of hand with like their feelings of power. Because maybe it worked one time, right? Like
yeah.
You say something into your megaphone
You're talking about the speaking power to truth thing, where it's like, look, all blacks need is good schools, and they'll be white people. So we're gonna put them in your schools. Hey, what happened with all these people? It must be the evil, like that kind of thing, where it's like, we said it was illegal. Why are you still doing it?
It goes further than that. So the law of attraction is where affirmations come from, right? That's where you say, I'm the best there is, until it's true.
Oh, okay. So this is fake it till you make it kind of stuff?
Yeah, which works a little bit, just not as much as the original proponents promised.
I'd say it works more than you would think it would, but less than people, once they get up into those places, less than they think it should work.
Yeah, there's a positive feedback thing that goes on with that, and sometimes it peters out, but sometimes your success can be due to something that you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And then that crumbles out from under you. You don't even notice, and like you do your thing where you're speaking your truth into the world, and it conforms to your wishes. But all of a sudden, this time it doesn't, and it actually goes horribly.
Mm-hmm.
With the Nazi LARPing, right?
Yeah.
They took out the Nazi flag at the Charlottesville thing. It goes really poorly.
It's like, what do you mean? We applied for a permit, and we totally did the things we had to do, so there's no way it could go wrong or whatever.
Yeah. So flip this over to the Me Too movement. This was basically their moment where, like, they thought, like, absent any consistency with reality, any recourse to evidence, anything, they were like, we have such power over the narrative of this thing, and our outrage can bring about any outcome, and everybody will just fall over because we're so powerful and we're so confident, you know. Like,
right.
What we believe will become real. And then, like, we don't want this guy in office. Therefore, we're going to use our power of the megaphone, the narrative, and the power of outrage on Twitter, and we're going to unseat this guy, right?
Right. We can make this guy a rapist if we just yell at him hard enough.
Exactly.
And everybody else will follow suit because they know what's good for them.
Exactly.
And then it didn't work. And it didn't work in the biggest, most obvious way.
Yeah. And that's where you get this outrage from. That's the ego injury, the narcissistic injury I was talking about with respect to nonviolent balkanization. This is when you've invaded somebody's ego, like their self-conception, which says, like, I control things with the power of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
When they've got so far up their own ass that they believe that, like, to show that, to demonstrate the incorrectness of that is a narcissistic injury.
Yeah. I can see that.
So, and it's nice when that happens. Like, people watching that, the Schadenfreude comes from, like, seeing that sort of hubris put down.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's definitely like, what is the deal? One of the things this makes me think of is somebody that's used to getting their way or something doesn't get their way, and it, like, destroys them. It just hurts them physically because they're like, no, this always works. Why isn't this working? And so you escalate even more because it's supposed to work to the point that it's damaging. Yeah. So you get those tantrums. And so this is actually a terrible spot for them because, one, this is the most obvious, most humiliating possible way of saying, hey, fuck that guy, he's a rapist, we're gonna destroy your life because we don't like you. So one, they did that. Oh dang, okay, I know what this is. So this is Anime is Real. In Gurren Lagann and in many other shows, they did this in the fucking Hunger Games. This is a common trope, right? Where they're like, look, I'm gonna defeat you and broadcast it on national TV so that everybody knows to keep their fucking heads down. You know that storyline?
Yeah. That's the end of Gladiator.
Yeah, so, like, a lot of people do it, right? When they're threatened, they're like, look, I'll just kill the symbol of this guy so you guys all know that your hope is dead. I'm going to destroy him on national television. So, like, in Gurren Lagann, they trap the heroes, and it's like, ha ha ha, I'm broadcasting you to all the underground cities to show that resistance is futile. But then they beat the guy, and suddenly, one, they showed exactly how far they're willing to go and how evil they are, and that they're definitely a bad dude. And two, they showed that they could be defeated on national television. Good job, guys.
Right.
So this is that kind of deal where it's like we put our all in onto this guy because one, we really expected him to have gone down without a fight, and two, we just cannot we cannot be denied. That would undo us a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's okay. We'll just publicly humiliate him so people don't try this stunt a second time. You know, like they tried to do with Trump. Oops.
Yeah.
So now the people are, like, the New York Times is busy going, fuck white women because they fall in love with racists. And white women should probably just die. And take your people back, you know. Take your white men back, take your racists back, fucking white women. I hate you.
How dare they?
Yeah, so it's like just the biggest displays of hatred and we're coming for you and never let them have a moment's peace in public life. So doing the evil maniacal villain stuff right in the moment that they show weakness and can be defeated. And they can't stop themselves, right? They're on this crazy train and apparently they just can't stop the hate train. Like, that's how it all works, right?
Right.
The
Do otherwise to puncture their solipsistic bubble, which says that there is no distinction between your internal state and the world outside of you. Because you will think with the reality, right? Everything is an expression of yourself. So if there's anything out there that's making you unhappy, all you have to do is fix it.
If you just yell at it enough, then people change.
Yeah, and that works in a dream, right? If you want to change your dream, all you have to do is will it to change, and it happens.
You see, I'm dreaming. I want to dream about Ninja Turtles or some shit right now, and it changes.
Yep. So that's the other side of the law of attraction that doesn't get so much attention is when you're just absolutely up your own ass. And then it gets punctured, and look at that, narcissistic injury. Just a waste of our time, really.
So you can hype yourself up, but when you start getting high on your own supply, when you start believing the hype, that's when you get in trouble.
Right.
That's when you get this, no, I cannot die, I am invincible! You can never defeat me! Oh shit, you defeated me. What?
You think that anime shit is exaggerated. There comes a time, like, everything today is like fiction or satire. We're talking about idiocracy. It becomes more prophetic by the day. Like that anime shit with the guy that's like, I can't be defeated, I'm immortal.
How? How could this happen? It's impossible.
You can't kill a god. Like that's exactly what people get like when they get too far up their own assholes. You know, megalomaniacs. But they just lose track of what actually works in the first place because you know there's all those knock-on effects from being successful and it drawing more success to it. And so forth.
Yeah. So like at some point you need the humility and you need the coming back down and getting back to your roots. You got to do your acoustic album and then go back and be a superstar again.
Yeah, you need that dude whispering Memento Mori into your ear.
Ooh.
Thank you.
I can see that. But it's been a great time, especially as more and more people start being like, cause even normal people are like, hey man, this is a little, look, this guy didn't do anything. You're just ramming it down these people's throats. What is the deal here? And even CNN is starting to say, wow, Trump is like the best Republican president ever. He's the most consequential president in the past 50 years. He's the only one that's gotten all this stuff done.
Yep. Americans love a winner.
Yeah, so it's like even Lindsey Graham's bending the knee now.
Dude, that was unearthly. I would not have guessed in a million years that Lindsey Graham would be dressing and doing his hair like Trump. And like acting like a shitlord in the face of like, you know, you put a normal person in front of a protester who's out of their mind coming at you. Like that's going to be just, it's going to, your cortisol's going to go up a little bit because like that stressful situation, it could get out of hand. You got to be aware of what's going on. And it was a completely different. He was in there like a winner. He was a champ.
He was like, "What's up, like, losers?"
Yeah, exactly. What's up, dorks? To let you out of here.
Have fun trying to beat this shit. You don't like it? Oh, I feel so bad about it. Just in his tie and whatever.
Here's a dude who has probably been taking it in the butt for 4. in Washington and cucking on everything. Like, where did that shit come from? You wonder if he's going to regress or what.
Mm-hmm.
But that is
Well, supposedly
thought-
the Kavanaugh thing was what pissed him off, is because like people, like, it used to be the thing was, do what we say and we won't hate you too hard, and if you don't do what we say, we'll destroy you. But you could at least pretend that the destroy you part wasn't happening while you were licking the feet. But they have made it beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's like, fuck you guys, fuck all of you. It's about power. It's not about bipartisanship or good feelings or principles. It's about fucking you in the ass while we stroke ourselves. And it's like, wow, well, fuck you guys. And maybe he just saw which way the wind was blowing or whatever, but it's fun. It's good TV.
I think it's a combination of those things, and like if the wind started blowing the other way, who knows? He might have based himself again. Oh, he's pretty old, so.
Mm-hmm.
That's another surprising thing. Old people don't generally change their stripes.
Mm-hmm. There may actually be something happening behind the scenes here.
Maybe somebody's putting what's the one you inject in your butt? The Trenbolone or whatever?
Oh God, do you inject that in your butt? Oh God. Holy shit, that's amazing.
I mean, I don't. I mean, the proverbial you injects that in his butt.
Yeah, the hypothetical you. The hypothetical you.
I just lift, and you know what? That does all right. And I actually also take like 6 vitamins. And that's always my counter argument to people, is say things are better than ever. Like, if things are better than ever, why do I have to take 6 pills a day
to be not gay?
To have half the testosterone my grandpa had, and he had never heard of a discipline. He would be like, "What kind of gay shit is that?" Like, no, it's actually very manly.
Oh, you
Grandpa.
just lift things for fun? Well, you don't have real work to do?
Yeah, how about you get back in the mill and grind out some hours? Like, Grandpa, we don't have those anymore.
You don't have mill? What the hell? Well, how do you get bread? We just pick it up from the store. It's like $1. It doesn't. Bread doesn't cost money anymore, Grandpa. What do you mean bread doesn't cost money?
People don't work in factories anymore, Grandpa. Not very many of them.
Although that's coming back apparently too. Kind of, sort of.
I really hope that takes. That is really important for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
We need that back. I hope it sticks. I hope Trump is goddamn forever.
Mm-hmm. You get Trump Jr. I mean, it happened with Bush and Bush Jr. and almost Jeb, right?
Yeah.
If a couple of elite families can take turns being president, so can Trump's family. You know what? Why the fuck not? It's definitely working out better for us than the last fucking bunch of losers.
I remember seeing a political cartoon in 2004 where they were joking about how the Clintons and the Bushes were just going to be trading the presidency back and forth between each other, like I don't know, like the Stanley Cup or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we were in very serious danger of that happening. Fortunately, Jeb is a low-end individual.
He wasn't the best brother here.
No, if he had been an alpha male, we might be in some serious trouble with the two crime families going back and forth. But fortunately, having a crime boss as your dad doesn't always produce an alpha male, and seems to go like one way or the other pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like passing kids that way.
It's the lobster thing. Where if you lose as a lobster, your brain just rejiggers into a loser.
I think it's just like the added responsibility of having a powerful person as your dad. It can go either way, and like more strongly than with normal people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
that's how the pastor's kids do.
That pops up in fiction a lot of times, and this happened in, who was the guy that does Spirited Away and all that stuff? Studio Ghibli. Is it Hideo Miyazaki?
Yeah.
His kids were talking about, his babies were his films. His children were his films, and he was never at the house. So a lot of these strong men are off doing very powerful man things and don't spend enough time with their kids and don't spend any time, raising the next generation. And
Yeah,
so you get one generation of super time and then you're out. You don't have a family business at all.
Yeah.
So
That's probably the primary reason that wealth doesn't, what do they say in China? That's like, wealth doesn't survive the third generation, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also it's kind of it's kind of like a system regulation thing. Like if you don't want to sprint all the time, you eventually go, why the fuck am I sprinting? And you slow down, right? If you're not being chased by a bear, what's the point? But if you don't have enough stuff chasing you, then you get fat and lazy, and then people don't even have to chase you to take you down. So you go through that working my ass off to succeed beyond any measure, and then the next people coming back are like, okay, I had caviar for breakfast since I was 3. Why do I need to do anything? Like, so I go to meetings and shit, but why would I need to risk it all on some crazy thing when we're already here? You know what I mean?
I'm going to throw it. I think you're right, and that's a big part of it. Like, you hear about the rich kids going on cocaine and all that shit. But here's a more empathetic take. Is, like, when kids have a really famous dad,
Mm-hmm.
that automatic, like, you're never not in that shadow. You would have to be as good or better. And if you did that, that would just be expected, right? Like,
Yeah.
You wouldn't really get praised for it. People just be like, that's what I expect from the son of Miyazaki.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's also a lot of, well, it can very easily produce learned helplessness, basically.
Yeah.
Which that's like when you have the dog that can move to one place or the other on the floor, but regardless, they always get a shock at like random times, and eventually they just lay down and stop trying to get away from it.
Yeah, it's like, well, if everything sucks, I'm not going to do shit.
Right, so it's very easy to produce a whipped dog, basically.
Mm-hmm.
In a situation where the dad is famous and powerful, and like you could never live up to that, and even if you did, it wouldn't be worth the effort, the cost, and all that. Like,
Yeah.
but you'll just never be normal, so you're automatically alienated for. So then you're like, what did I do to deserve this? And can I even complain about it? Like, nobody understands that this is actually a problem.
Yeah, it's hard to complain about being super rich and your dad being a bajillionaire.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of traction with that against the.
So there's also,
No, but it's absolutely true that successful people have problems and they fucking suck and they're hard to relate to because they're so remote.
Mhm.
So it can be about a lot of things. And I think we have some more questions. I don't quite understand the be me question here, so I'm going to skip the green text one. Going to need to consult an expert for that one. So, let me check.
maybe we can get Vice to translate that, and then you can translate what Vice says.
There we go. That'll work. So, so this one was from a little while ago. State-enforced pause patches from Vice. So, this is happening in video games where not only are new video games, people are saying, I know this is a historically accurate game, but we have lesbians generals in it because, sexism from the past doesn't need to really have to be accurately represented if it's racist. But besides that, so one of the things in Total War Rome 2, they patched in a couple new systems to the game that people already purchased and bought DLC for, and they say, okay, we changed like a family system. We patched in a family system, and people were like, hey man, there are like a bajillion women generals on my team now. What's going on here? And they're like, well, that can happen. We didn't do it on purpose, but we're not taking it out, so go fuck yourself.
Yeah, and then, you come back and ask, well, it actually was on purpose, but fuck you anyway.
Yeah. It's like, actually, we're proud about having more women generals in a historical Rome game, even though that didn't exist. Because you know what? When a little girl grows up, they need to think, I could have been a Roman general. We was kings. And that's healthy.
Right, because if you think otherwise, that would be... Oh, okay, so we talked about... There's 2 parts to this. First of all, is there a question on the end of that, or can I just run with it?
I think that was a discussion topic thing.
Okay.
What do we think about that? What is the deal?
All right. So we already talked about the law of attraction and how that makes people think that they can speak reality into being because they are little gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what narcissism essentially comes down to is somebody gets so far up their own butt that they think that they're a god and they can create reality just by wanting it to be, which has enough truth to it to be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, that is not true. It has to do with necessary and sufficient conditions and understanding of like prime movers. I won't get into that, but
you can get a lot of results before you start bumping up against the leaks in that abstraction.
Yeah, particularly if you're wealthy, or you have some other sort of wealth. Like if you have a 200 IQ or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I saw in that discussion of extremely gifted children. That I can't even remember who linked that. It might have been Arakawa, which said that people at a certain level of intelligence often have trouble coming out of their solid system because it didn't say why, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it said it's something of an accomplishment for them to realize that reality exists outside of their own outside of their mind because
Mm-hmm.
everything in it comes so easily to them. It's difficult to understand that there are parts of the world that are not also within you.
Mm-hmm.
Because they assimilate information so easily. What was I getting at with that? Oh, right. That's a sort of extreme wealth that can make you solipsistic and get up your own ass.
Yeah, prone to the butt up the head syndrome.
Yeah. So that's with the female generals, the state enforced pause. Now, part of that is just the Jewish subversion of the culture. But if we're looking at this in broader terms, because first of all, they believe that as part of their nationalism to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But like the reason a lot of people in the West go along with this is because of this sort of narcissism is built into our philosophy and has been for a long time. So anyway, you have your law of attraction in combination with the postmodernist definition of truth, which
Mm-hmm.
says that there is no truth.
Truth is whatever you can get away with saying out loud.
Yeah. So there are no historical facts. There are only narratives wrapped in other narratives, and like there's just an endless chain of citations in your papers, and it can make circular citations, and that becomes the reality of what actually happened. So there are when they are rewriting history, they think they are actually recreating history to be more to fulfill social justice.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's the third part. So you have the law of attraction. You have the idea that that truth doesn't exist, and everything is just
So
narrative.
something like they're trying to be the global homo they want to see in the world, and really, who could have known? It could have been that way anyway. You don't know. Nobody can know the past, so it probably was the way I told the story about it anyway.
So that nobody can know, and knowledge is impossible. We might as well tell the one which creates the power dynamic that is in favor of what we're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
This is the story we might as well tell.
Yeah.
Because they're all equal. There's no privileged frame of reference.
And to an extent, that kind of works, where it's like, it doesn't. You have to be careful with that one, but there are multiple ways of describing your own situation that are equally valid. Like you could say, so Mike Cernovich does this, and I kind of laugh because a lot of times people say, "Hey man, your first wife divorced you, and you collect alimony, and that's how you get your money." And so he's like, "So what you're saying is I'm so good at winning, I won in the divorce courts?" Is that?
Yeah, that's a reframe.
So the reframe is kind of that way, but applied to the present, and it works out a good amount of time. And there was something talking about when the Japanese got bombed in Hiroshima and everything. A lot of when they were rebuilding, they had these wrestling matches where the bad guy was a American dude that cheats to win, and then the tiny Japanese guy beats the big American wrestler, and people use that to cope, kind of mentally.
Right.
So there's something
like
to that, even though it's
matter in a fight, or like women can beat men in a fight because it must have happened sometime throughout history. Therefore, men and women are equal.
yeah. So it can easily get taken too far, like in this scenario. But like you can use that technique. It's not exclusively a leftist move to be like, you're a winner. You can do that presentation. You can give that talk and talk really good. Then you go outside and you talk good, and everybody wins.
Yeah, the trouble with this sort of thing, and one of the reasons, how do I say? Basically, a problem with humanity is the majority of people will always be binary thinkers, and you can't talk about frames of reference or comparable narratives or the truthiness of each of those things as if they were probability distributions, because that's fundamentally outside the experience of most people. So, binary thinking type narratives tend to win out.
You got to have simple stories with good guys and bad guys, and this is absolutely how it works. And not, well, it could go 7 different ways, and really that's just how life is.
Yeah, so, you know, you run across this sort of thing, especially with Bible interpretation. Like, anyway, I don't want to get too off into the weeds about that, because it's fundamentally a probabilistic sort of thing, and we just don't have very good words for talking about that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a story for another time.
Yep. But worth mentioning that the story, when this is the basic reasoning that they're using when they're trying to rewrite history that way, recreate history that way, is they are basing that on the idea that there is no privileged frame of reference. Therefore, you choose the one that makes you powerful. Which, we'll talk about Jordan Peterson in a bit. This is also very close to what he...
Yeah, which works until it doesn't.
Which he discovered in real life.
Oh, yeah. Is that a good time to go into that, or do you want to keep doing questions real quick?
I want to hit the third point on the female generals thing.
Okay.
The state of cortege. Then the World War II women soldiers with the hooks for hands or something. I never really got into all that Gamergate shit, but I heard some weird stuff about modern warfare.
Yeah.
Alright, so the third part is social justice, which is pretty easily explained like so. John Locke came up with the first idea, which is a blank slate. It says everybody comes out of the womb the same, therefore all outcomes are due to nurture. So you have your nature, your nurture. He said there is no nature, there's only nurture. So all outcomes are based on the way either society treats you or just like the way you grew up, just stuff that happens to you. You combine that with the idea of justice, which is one that we can get on board with. It says people should get what they deserve. Like, all right, so that's your basic idea. Difficult to practice, fairly easy to state and agree with. People should get what they deserve based on the way that they make choices and act.
Yeah.
So you combine those, especially. Oh shit, we should really get into this. Maybe later, but this is a good setup. All right. So what you get from that, the idea that there should be justice, and everybody starts out equal, is if there are unequal outcomes, that points to, logically, unequal treatment, and that treatment should be even in order for us to say that justice has been done. So that's why you have to equal all outcomes.
That kind of makes sense.
Yep. And if you're talking about social justice, then it has to be society which imposes those equal outcomes. It's the job of society to impose equal outcomes so that justice will have been done.
That sounds pretty much like I would think it is. The Jim's blog formulation of that is that everybody is the same, and so if you notice that people aren't the same, it's the fault of evil mind control raised by people gaming the system to keep other people down. There's no reason they would be there on their own. It had to be somebody else sticking them there.
That is something that came with the solipsism, and also there's a great deal of magical thinking in that. And he's correct. It's just not part of the original formulation.
Mm-hmm.
John Stuart Mill.
So it's the original philosophical, logical extreme endpoint kind of thing. That's the foundation it started on, and then the practical day-to-day realities is the Jim's blog thing, I think.
Right. The original philosophical foundation of the Enlightenment did not have magical mind rays in it. That didn't come until about early 1800s.
Which is kind of flattering. It's like white people are so crazy, magically smart and powerful that they run everything even when they're trying with all their might not to.
Yeah, and this is one of the stumbling stones for the alt-white, is the idea that white people are so powerful that they have that magical, property to them that we were just talking about. I think that they've learned that that's not true, or at least not to push that idea, except in the extremes, when they're only talking to each other. So I expect that the Daily Stormer, now that they're off in the dark corners of the internet, they've probably purity spiraled on that topic. But the ones who actually have to worry about living in reality have tamed that, at least. Or they aren't addressing it. But they certainly were before. The magic white people meme came from all of that.
Mm-hmm.
The mystical Aryan race, which is the what is it? It's like the I am the turtle thing, except a little different.
Except mine is better.
Yeah, mine is way better. But it's saying that we. Okay, I'm off script a little bit. It's similar to the idea in Gnosticism, and I'm talking about classical Gnosticism here.
Mm-hmm.
Where they divided people into three types: the purely animal, the purely spiritual, and the half and half. Where the purely spiritual person could do whatever they want and not be tainted by material things.
Mm-hmm.
So they would engage in degenerate sex and husband's wife.
Having an orgy with 20 dudes doesn't make me gay because my soul has transcended this fleshy whatever this is.
Right. And then you have your halfsies who can do some wrong, but they can also do some good, and they have to constantly choose and fight to be more spiritual than material.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your just pure animals, material. So in the alt-right, you would call them shitskins and mud people who are so base that they have no agency. They're not real people. They're animals. They're cattle.
They don't have the souls hardly at all anyway.
Yep. Or if you're a Zionist, let's not say Zionist. Let's say if you are a Jewish imperialist, then you goyim are cattle. They have no souls. They don't make decisions.
Right.
They have no agency. They have no conscience.
You don't have to.
Therefore,
you don't have to worry about feeling bad for somebody that can't really feel pain to begin with. Like, you can't hurt somebody that doesn't feel pain.
And in fact, if you didn't cause them pain, then they would get uppity, or they would hurt themselves by their lack of agency, their lack of consciousness about consequences.
Yeah, if you got to kick a vacuum cleaner to get it to start, nobody's gonna feel bad about that. What are you worrying about a vacuum cleaner? Just get a new one from IKEA.
Yeah, and you can see this three-type division all over the place. This is where the original three-caste, my opinion, this is where the original three-caste social structure comes from. And what the hell? I'll figure out some more. I don't even know how I got off on this, but I'll keep going. This is interesting stuff.
Okay.
So, in the liberal Protestantism and just liberalism in general, you see the same attitude where you have magic white people, where only white people can make conscious decisions, and everybody else is just either suffering or being treated well by them. The assumption is that black people, minorities, have no agency of their own, and have to be rescued by white people and all that. So they can't do wrong because the assumption is that they aren't on equal standing. They don't have the same power. They don't have, if they do anything, it's because white people mistreated them.
Right. So the equality thing secretly turns white people into magic saviors, and ultimate, all-powerful whatchamahoozies.
Right. Especially
in the name of equality, which is the weird part.
Yep. Yep. And then you have your flyover white people who need to be punished so that they make the right decision because they're the heavies. They have the spirit and they have the animal.
I can see that.
Yep, and they have to be continually punished and rewarded based on their opinions and driven more and more to their more spiritual side, which is to defer on all material considerations.
They got to end up on the right side of history.
Yeah, and that right side of history is the end of Evangelion thing.
Mm-hmm.
All the souls are harvested into one big mess of LCL.
Man,
yep.
It's got everything a body needs. You're not going to have a body at the end of it, but that's okay.
That's right. We'll just be amniotic fluid drinking other amniotic fluid. It's such a beautiful vision for the future.
I can't fap to that. I'm sorry. I can't. What is this? I don't like that future.
So, I think this is a myth application of a real thing, which I will now explain because I want to be autistic today.
Why the hell not? Let's do it.
All right. So if you look at a Pareto distribution, then you got the 20%, you got your 80%, and then you got your people that didn't make the cut in the first place, because a Pareto distribution results from a bell curve which has a 0. So you have people that are under the threshold and above the threshold. So let's say we're talking about mathematical accomplishment, or even better than that. Let's say we're talking about the number of citations you have in a mathematical journal, as opposed to IQ. So there is, approximately speaking, and enough so that if you actually work out the math, I'm sure that you'll find the correct result here. There is a threshold for IQ to have a theorem published in a mathematical journal. But there's going to be a Pareto distribution that results from that, of people who get their stuff published and how much of it. People with IQs below 120, we'll say, being generous, are not ever going to have a mathematical theorem published. People who have IQs of 160 might have a large number of them. And cutting off the bell curve at a particular point, such that it's now a question of accomplishment versus normally distributed aptitude, results in that 80-20 rule. So, in terms of the 3-caste system, you have your people who effectively, when you're talking about accomplishment, actually can do no wrong. These would be your 20%ers, people who can just decide to do something and then accomplish it within the realm of whatever accomplishment thing that you're talking about. You can talk about that's in a technological society as a great example. Great example, Aeoli. Props for that one.
Good job.
So success in a technological society, a lot of people can, like, they can talk paradoxes, they can break the rules as they're set up and still succeed because they just have the talent to make it work. They can do all sorts of things wrong and still come out on top. So what you're looking at there is the enlightened people, the chosen, who effectively can do no wrong, or at least can do so little wrong that because they, situationally correct, they can do so little wrong that it is a good strategy for them to be high risk takers, to be novelty seeking. Then you've got your 80%. These would be your normies versus your chosen, right? You have your chosen, you have your normies. Your 80% who still made the cutoff, but they are getting some success, but they have to be careful.
Yeah.
They have to make good decisions. They have to follow the rules. And, they have to focus their efforts. So they can't be generalist or ambitious or what have you. So that, in America, that'd be your bourgeois.
Okay.
And then you have your unwashed, huddled masses who can't do anything right because they are mere animals. They don't have the IQ to hack it. So that would be anybody probably under the IQ of 95 who's just not going to do well. And, everything they do crumbles to pieces because they can't connect all the dots to get their Linux running or something. That's just too much.
Mm-hmm. And it's just not happening.
Yeah, so if you're looking at IQ bands, you're probably talking 95 to 115 for your normies. That's what's considered normal. So that's why people always joke about how average is retarded, because if you're above 115, it seems like that too, because you got that different phenotype. You got the different.
You can do things when you try to do them.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You just have to pick and choose as you go and prioritize. But you're like Fred Reed says, you can decide one day to learn ancient Greek and then just do it. And then you got your people below 95 who you can call those. Let's see. I wrote this down one time. You have your chosen, your normies, and I had a really good word for this too.
Your Untermenschen.
Yeah, there you go. And that that plays out in a lot of different societies in different ways, but then you can have subcastes like the Hindus do. But you're going to see those three pretty consistently, and I think the reason is because of that Pareto distribution I mentioned, where you take different strategies, or different strategies work better for you, are more rewarding for you, based on your position in that distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So, I hope that's right. Somebody smart can actually maybe look at that. And there, I've satisfied my audience.
All right. Do you want to do the summary of this one? We've kind of gone on a good bit on this. I think we were starting on... Are we still on the Total War stuff? And then we ended up here?
Did I already talk about... I talked about social justice. So I hit all the three of the points that I wanted.
Mm-hmm. The three things, and then the kind of where that comes from and the history of it.
I could say one more thing about that, which is the society part of it, because it's social justice, right? It's not just equality justice.
Right.
So, if
we live in a society.
Yeah. Well, there's also that. That's there's a lot of assumptions baked into that cake, which could be unpacked. Like it basically assumes that outside reality has no effect on society.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly, your food comes from somewhere.
Food comes from somewhere, and if you drink stuff in the water that's not supposed to be there, things happen to you.
Yeah. But okay, so about rewriting history, right? So I had that joke a while back. I went over it real good, which is if you eat the white man's history, you get his magic, which is appears to be the raw motivation of all of the rewriting of history.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is that minorities don't give a shit about, roughly speaking, don't give a shit about actual social justice. They're just hijacking that for their identity politics so that they can advocate for these things with white people and take all their stuff.
Well, the one lady, the lady that got on the New York Times, that's like, yeah, everybody knows that you just hate white people to get a job. That's what we're all doing.
Right. And that is, so that's why the social justice thing, first of all, is being hijacked in the first place. It's because you can. And, that's just the way it's been working. But the social justice thing was baked into the Enlightenment philosophy for a long time. I mean, we're talking about Locke and John Stuart Mill and Jeremy Bentham and those folks.
Yeah. So, in other words, in the Enlightenment now, gamers rise up.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to do some more of these questions here? We might have to split this one up.
I got you. My autism says.
Okay.
All right. So if you take the position that justice overall includes historical injustice, so you have to even out the inequality from previous history as well as equality in the present, then...
Oh shit, are you saying that the history rewriting thing is like reparations? Is reparations for history?
Yeah. And so it's combining all of these motivations. Like it's also rewriting history for the purpose of like just your narcissistic will to power. But yeah, it's also reparations, and that's why it appeals to white people who aren't into the black power bit, unless they're actual cucks, like they have that sexual fetish.
Yeah. Which
but
is
that historical injustice narrative is why white people can justify that kind of shit philosophically.
Mm-hmm. Which it's going to get really confusing when you start realizing that we've always had black generals, and we've always had birth control for women, and women always had the vote because we played so many video games where women were generals with the vote that had responsible health care. And you're like, wait, why are we doing anything? This already happened.
And then they're like, well, actually, we are going to take your farm.
Actually, we are going to what?
Take your farm.
Yeah, and then, yeah. And then you get oogled by the booger.
Yep. And then the next turn of the wheel happens, and you don't have Neanderthals anymore. But that's just a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, it's sad.
Why would I be upset about that if I didn't have a small penis? I mean, clearly, it's insecurity.
Well, clearly what we got to do is have a tree stump in the woods clan, but actually get yourself a coding job, but stay separate from the culture. We will be tech priests, like Warhammer 40K, and that's nerdy enough to get enough of these people in, I think. What do you think?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. Do we want to get into that as a thing?
Maybe someday. I do want somebody to be like, hey, you have like a spurgy nerdy dude. We're going to take him to a nature camp because studies show that nature helps for some reason. Okay? Hey, man, what's up? We're going to take all the estrogens out of your drinking water and get you to deadlift 225 just to start. We'll see how you feel from there, man. What?
You do see some of that kind of lowercase e hedonism in like Silicon Valley in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually realizing like, hey, studies show that fresh air is good for you. Like, who would have thought that? And then, they like sponsor trips outside for their engineers or some shit to get their productivity up. But
so,
I don't.
Can slurp on that a little bit too. I don't know if that's going to be like a thing, but it's like if you want to increase the genetics of the Neanderthals, creating that kind of environment where Neanderthal adapted people could kind of thrive is a good start. Like that's a thing you can do to change it a tiny bit, and who knows, maybe it'll catch on.
Yes, that is certainly true, and I think we have pretty good evidence for that from the similarity of Neanderthals to orangutans versus chimpanzees to Homo sapiens. Because the one does much better in a domestic environment than the other. We should say a nurturing environment because we're talking about like not domestic, actually getting like fresh air and shit.
Mm-hmm. Be like, here's a hay bale. Carry that over there to the shed. Can't we just use a wagon? Carry it to the shed, man. You'll understand when you get there.
Yeah, and try to breathe in as much of that shit in the air as you can. That's to keep you from developing allergies. And also, we didn't give you vaccines as a kid because we're antisocial anarchists.
So there's a guy that's called Mr. Meadowcur that makes fun of people on the internet for a living now. I think that's his official job. And like one of the things he did recently is dive into the furry community and just how fucked up their shit is. But he got kicked off of Twitter, but now he's back on Twitter as Mr. Billy the Anti-Bully. And he's doing all well. He hasn't got banned yet. He's actually done all right. I think I'm going to take a page out of the Democrats playbook, and anytime I want to do something like this, I'm going to be like, so our thing is Asperger survival and nourishment things, and this will be a place you can pray the spurg away, kind of thing. It'll be a rehabilitation camp.
Oh, but secretly it would be Asperger's identitarianism. Gamers rise up.
Exactly. It's like all the polygamists nowadays are feminists.
I do not think that you should lie to people that you love. I don't think that's a good strategy.
I can agree with that. I'll have to figure out how that works.
I mean, I guess being a parent would typically disabuse a non-crazy person. Like there have been some ideologues in history who have seriously fucked up their kids.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about this more along the like systemic camouflage, so the system knows what you're supposed to be doing because you're being like, hey, we're productive member of society, cog welders or whatever. We'll scrape off the rust edges of your weird nerdy kid and make him into football and shit or whatever.
Well, that could be true.
And then, so you what I was saying is like the polygamists now are feminists. They say, hey man, look man, I'm not a patriarch. I don't do patriarchy. I don't pay these women to live in the same house with me. They pay their own rent.
I just brand them.
They have their own jobs, and they're all married to me, and we all have like a shared communal pool or something, but it all is accounted for. So I like that they're hardworking individuals that are independent for me and all this stuff. And really, the dude is just, now instead of having one income, he's got 4 incomes that he's in control of.
Yeah, his women are working the field. Just update it a little bit.
Yeah, so like, I don't know, who is it? It's Mycroft that's talking about this, right? If you want polygamy to work, get into feminism and just start marrying some women. I don't know. It can happen. It's happening today. You can live your dreams. You just gotta be like, oh no, we're stuck out here in the boonies. Everything's so boring. Gosh, this sucks. Being at one with nature and shit. I wish I was an urban, rootless cosmopolitan like you guys. Wow. It's like you were saying with you don't trigger the narcissistic injury and you're okay. You're like, oh yeah, we'll totally pay taxes next week. You're in charge of us, man. Sorry, we're just shit out here in the boonies. You guys are so smart out there. You just do that long enough.
If you're going to live in a second or third world shithole, you can learn a lot from the way Italians do things.
I want a secret first world refuge that nobody knows about because they think it's redneck Hickville. I want a camouflage Hickville. I want a first world speakeasy.
You're Illuminati? Congratulations.
Ah, shit. Is that what this is?
That's what Illuminati is.
Am I going to be the Illuminati revolution here? Gamers rise up.
You already are.
Sponsored
Welcome
by Mountain Dew.
Code Red.
Mountain Dew Code Red. That'll just be the signal.
Oh, hold up. 33rd Degree Boomer. White Monsters.
Oh, shit.
As sponsored by White Monster.
Everybody's sitting around, doing code stuff in little hip cafes or whatever, or outside, smelling faintly of sheep manure, and somebody's like, Mountain Dew Code Red, and they put their hillbilly teeth on, and they open up a can of Mountain Dew, and everybody just starts looking around like some guy comes through and it's like, oh, poor old Hickville, we have it so much better back in the city, and patting themselves on the back, fanning their balls. You're like, all right, coast is clear, you go back to being smart. 3 guys come out in blackface. Oh, it's so diverse in here. Ah, we did our job.
Go back to mowing the lawn around your tree stump. I like this.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good one.
So that's the idea.
You put your Starbucks mocha latte away. You pull your White Monster back out.
Well, like the world already has fiction for this kind of thing, right? Like, do you remember Matilda?
I never saw it.
Matilda was a story about the parents liked TV and didn't like books, so the comely school teacher takes Matilda and is like, "You're really smart. I'll just give you books and help you do better." And then the parents don't really care. So they're like, "Yeah, she's doing okay in school. All right, fine. Can you get her to watch more TV?" Sure, whatever. And then you go in and you get more books, right?
Yeah.
There's already kind of a thing where that story pattern, people understand what happens when you're doing that kind of thing. So if you're like, we're going to take your nerd kids and make them not nerd kids, and they're like, all right, however you do that, I don't care, as long as they can play football at the end of this, right?
I have a question that for like archetypal type stuff. Is Matilda a redhead?
I think brunette. Let me check. Matilda movie, she has brown hair. It's vaguely red, but it's not really.
Okay. I was trying to figure out which direction they were going with the indigo child thing.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your Harry Potter kid, then you have your vaguely... So there's some hints of like pedophilia in that kind of storyline, because like that's the pedophile fantasy, is that they're inducting the child into the intellectual world of magic and sex and drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to shit on that story. It could be perfectly innocent. I was just getting flavors of that, and I was curious what sort of mythical stuff they were going for.
I think you might have to watch the Matilda movie. It's got Danny DeVito as a used car salesman in it. And
that makes sense.
It's got It's got Miss Trunchbull, who is basically a beefy lesbian lady that puts kids in the chokey, and she's the bad guy, which is nice.
Puts them in the what?
Puts them in the chokey. It's a closet with nails right at your throat or whatever, so you can't move.
That's kind of dark.
Yeah. It's a Ronald Dahl book that it was based on, and he had some dark stuff. He's like, kids can go through a lot of dark shit as long as you give them a happy ending. It's like, kids are not babies. They're smarter than you think. They can handle trauma.
Well, he was also an Aspie-Path.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he's one of the better examples with H.P. Lovecraft and Mark Zuckerberg. And I'm not saying he's entirely wrong. I'm just saying, like, you can't always trust a sadist when they say that you hurt people in order to help them. Sometimes they're just justifying their sadism.
Sometimes they're just into that.
Right, and with Aspie-Path, they are into, like, dark types of stuff in general.
Yeah.
So he's not entirely wrong,
But take it with a grain of salt. Be careful with that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you got like that you got to figure out when you're a parent. I presume I'm not a parent, but I think a lot of these questions sort of get answered through common sense. Like you're forced to actually discover your common sense as a parent when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Well, you live and learn and then get loves. That's what TV told me.
Right. I had something. No, let's keep going. I'll remember it.
Okay. We have a bunch of questions on here. There's a list of questions sent by William Allison. I don't know if the list is here.
It's in the chat.
Oh, it's a little bit farther down. Okay. So, what genes or traits are most heavily impacted by epigenetics?
And the answer is, I don't know, because I don't know anything about that field.
Okay. Do you think that instincts may be processed by epigenetics, like our genes being modified by our environment to act accordingly in different environments? Is that another I don't know?
Yeah, that is the thesis of that entire field, is that epigenetics is what causes at least some of the changes induced by the environment. So it says that the environment changes your reaction, which edits your genes, so you have different genetic expression afterwards. And that's I couldn't speculate on that. I did have one other thing for the previous one. I said that logically, although I don't know this, there could be considerations that I'm just not aware of, but logically you would expect that single gene expressions would be more likely to be changed by epigenetics because you just don't have, like, it would appear to be a higher probability thing for one gene to be edited than for multiple genes.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, height and IQ, you probably aren't going to change by epigenetics, but maybe you could give somebody red hair that way or something.
Oh, you can definitely do that with nutrition, if that counts.
Nutrition is another sort of nurture, but I don't know if that edits your genes.
Okay. So a lot of these are kind of epigenetics related questions and follow-up questions to those previous ones. Do you want me to keep reading them, or do you want to go through them?
Yeah, let's keep reading them. I actually already answered them in a chat with him.
Oh, okay. So, let me see where we're at. So, such as a guy going into the wilderness and having the gene be expressed in a way that would make it similar to his ancestors, but when he comes back to the city, his gene expression changes. So you can you take a city guy out to the wilderness and get him wild? And then flip him back?
And obviously, yes. And was it you that posted the example of that guy that was raised by wolves, and then he went back and they wouldn't accept him?
I did that, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good example of a very strong environmental effect. But what's that epigenetic? Who knows? Well, all we know is that genes are not deterministic. Like, lots of shit can happen.
Yeah, people adapt to their environment for sure.
Yeah, environment does have an effect, and it's anybody's guess how much of that is actually gene editing. Or I think it's what they do is it turns the genes on and off, but
yeah,
I don't fucking know.
Okay, so big question marks here, and then
big takeaway here is this is not something I actually know about. I'm just a kind of smart guy with good instincts, but yeah, I have not studied this.
Yeah. So he's asking if that's possible. I think he said maybe. Because instincts rely on the situation we're in. So are instincts and intuition just manifestations of genetic memory?
I think some of that, yes.
Okay. And then he says, I know you've written about how different phenotypes react in situations that are accustomed to their mating and survival success. So does that mean people are competing for reproductive success within their own race as well? How would the selfish gene play in all this? Say again?
Absolutely, yes. I said absolutely, yes. People do compete for reproductive success within their tribes, within their races. So.
I think that's a given.
Yeah. Or, like, the idea of group selection does not negate individual reproductive competition.
Mm-hmm.
But in particular, you see a lot of intratribal competition within, like, K-selected species. So the more general theory about that is called multi-level selection, which says that there is competition happening at multiple levels. You have groups fighting with each other, you have ecosystems competing with each other, and you have individuals competing with each other. So
I have a great illustration of the multi-level selection thing here. From the Mr. Medicator guy. This is actually horrible. But so there was the Communist Party USA or something. So the communists got infiltrated by trannies, and so the communist women were being harassed and being like, you got to have sex with these trannies, otherwise you're not a good ally. And they're like, wait a second, why are you voting out all of these actual communists that are doing communist things and spending all our money on gay orgies? So cash went missing from their accounts. They started getting whisper campaigns saying that these people were evil and doing horrible things and yada yada. And apparently the chairman of the guy that was in charge of this particular party in the Florida branch had a thing for one of these trannies, and so he was sweeping it under the rug. And it's like, how do I...
All right. So you're right. This is all horrible so far.
So there's the trainees are competing for dominance in the Communist Party. The communist people in this are like, hey man, the Democrats are laughing at us. The other communist people, they're going to report us back to the communists of other countries and write us out. This is really bad. And then all these people are, fuck drunk people and fighting on a larger level there too, right?
Right.
So there's your microcosm. And you think infighting on the right was bad?
It's a very gay world out there. That's all I'll say about that.
This is some standard pool parties right there.
Yeah.
But,
are we 100% done with questions? We could actually talk about other shit now?
Maybe. I'm about good. We have that sheet. We can do the rest of them on here.
Okay.
How about...
And incentive time. If you want your questions to be answered first, then you got to put them in the post, because that's what we're going to go to first.
Yeah, we've officially gotten more questions than we have time for answers. We might just have to do like a question time block thing, or pound them out or something. But the podcast ones get the podcast announcement thread on Aeoli's blog is where it gets first, and I might put a link in the description. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff while we're doing that shit.
Right. And if you want your question answered first, if you want to pound it out, say pound me out too, hashtag.
And I'm probably going to get shut down on this, but if you really want your question answered, we have cash tags that you can donate like a quarter to or something, like $1.
We're doing super chat.
They're doing super chats. We YouTube now. We're serious YouTubers.
Well, yeah, we're on. Thankfully, we aren't popular enough to actually have to worry about being shown.
My Nike sponsorships.
Yeah, we don't have the audience to sell out quite yet. Soon. Sell out everybody.
All we gotta do is go from weird phrenology stuff to I don't know, house music and basic bitch conservatism, and we'll have a. You know what, man?
You had the best idea for that. Is to go into like hedonist matchmaking site. You're like, here's your type and here's your ideal mating partner.
Oh yeah, do horoscopes and dating quizzes. What your Pharaoh Melon brain case says about your future mate.
Oh shit! That reminds me. There was another question about that, about pheromones, and I wanted to try to hit that one.
Okay.
Because I told the guy, we basically don't know anything, and it's all made up to begin with. But I had a couple things that I could probably say. All right, so he asked, like, what is the deal? Can you do like one of them horoscopes for the pheromones? And I was like, no, but I guess there are a couple things you can say.
Okay.
It's based on like two sample size of 2 IRL, and in both cases we were talking about like athletic supermen. So it's like we're talking about a type which is probably really high on the twitch of muscle fibers for one, probably backslide, and probably look like it appears to be the melon version of the nobility. Kind of. Like, they appear to be pretty close. More archaic, maybe. But they're pretty racialized, I think. Like, if you look at the more stuff. And I already gave the best examples, I think. Koshi, the mathematician Koshi. And then Koshi Schwartz, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Koshi
Maybe it's
Schwartz.
Koshi Riemann. Yeah. He was a Frenchie.
It was a Frenchie.
Yeah. Well, all the mathematicians were back in the day.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny. Everybody's just like, these countries go through waves. It's like, you remember when everybody had empires, man? Yeah, Britain had an empire, the French had an empire, the Spanish had an empire. The Spanish? Yeah, the Spanish. No shit.
Yeah, well, that's like the Enlightenment comes at kind of at the high noon when you see the Enlightenment stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So France had an Enlightenment. The Scottish had an Enlightenment. They put out a bunch put out a bunch of conventions and shit. I think that's when, they produced Maxwell at that time, as in Maxwell's equation.
Yeah.
And we took a lot of their political theorizing and made it American.
That's
better.
That sounds very American. Yeah, to everybody that's not American, America's the best, and especially to people in the UK, joke's on you, you have to buy a license to jack off. That's what I hear. So America, I heard...
not ironically, in the UK.
Yeah, not ironically, you have to go to the newspaper stand and buy your porn license to get porn. And the cops will peek into your window and make sure you've got your license posted.
Another thing that sounds like something the UK would unironically do.
That's apparently real. It's apparently real. I've seen articles. I don't know how common it is, but you know. But so there was a joke that the US, that English looks for other languages with loose grammar and beats them up in an alleyway and steals all their words. And they said it like it was a joke against America. You know what I mean? They said it like it was a bad thing. But hell, man, every language in the world belongs to America.
That's right. The only problem with other languages is they aren't American yet. Yet. But yeah, that's American imperialist culture in a nutshell, where we spread the neoliberal project, basically like that.
America's almost to the point where we're gonna steal kings and we're gonna make it America. We're gonna be like, we got kings now. We've always had kings, not America, and not like we did. Ours are bigger. They have guns, and tanks, and shit.
We is kings and we was king.
Yeah.
The pharaohs were American.
That's every pharaoh in the world belongs to America.
Right, which brings us back to Pharaoh Melon.
Yeah.
Except there's nothing else to say about him. They're, backswept, shallow socket, and probably mesomorphic with really high density of fast twitch muscle fibers.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
You're probably big, strong, people, and good things. Yep. Good things about you.
And driven, like backswept, because backswept occipital tend to be the more driven ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not exactly sure why that is, but they aside from like normal archetype spiraling, they will just if you want to see like a high performer in the athletics or something, they're going to tend to be like that for stuff.
They're going to be there. They're going to be like, I'm in it to win it forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I hijacked things for that, but I did want to do a little bit more fan service there.
That's fine. And I think I'm going to put a note in here to be like, okay, we did all the questions that we could do, and we finished that out by an hour and 43 minutes. That's some time right there. So 1:43 is the end of question time. So I've got edit in 20 PewDiePie reaction shots. I've got end of question time. And now, okay, so what are we doing next? We're going to do the JPQ?
Yeah, let's do it. I want to hear your rant.
Oh, yeah. Fuck Jordan Peterson, man. Okay, so...
What do you do?
For those of you who don't know, all three of you, whoever you are, I don't know, maybe there's a ton of people. So, in the U.S., Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh got confirmed, and there was a whole lot of back and forth. This one lady was sitting on a report for 2 months. Senator Feinstein was sitting on a report for 2 months that basically said, hey man, I remember that this guy gang raped me with a train of other dudes on broken glass. And nobody noticed it or reported about it, but it totally happened. And he did it. Don't let him become Supreme Court Justice, please. And so she waited until 5 minutes before he was announced and confirmed and said, hey, that guy is a bad guy. And there's been a whole lot of bullshit about that here recently. So, at the end of that, as the final vote is becoming to be, he's looking like he's going to win this thing. Jordan Peterson says, "Hey man, if confirmed, Kavanaugh should step down." And it was very
number of people took this
very
poorly.
confusing. It was not taken very well by his main audience, and it does not really gel with his previous things of saying, "Hey man, if an angry mob's yelling at you, what you got to do is stand your ground because angry mobs are not to be reasoned with. They're crazy." And also, he has built a career out of being the one guy in academia talking shit about social justice warriors and about gender studies and grievance studies and different things, and basically saying these are all crazy and the left's lost its mind, and please do us just a little bit softer and gentler, put some lube on. Please, not so much in the butt. Try some other holes here. So the person with that kind of pedigree suddenly going, "Hey man, you know what? You should do the opposite of what I've done and what I've advised other people to do multiple times, and just step down if you win. If you don't win, well, you tried."
It'll clear your name if you.
It'll clear your name if you apologize and you just take a knee, and you all that kind of stuff. And so there was a lot of questioning on the reactions at the time were on the spectrum of "nigga what" to "I'm gonna shoot you."
Yeah, exactly. I believe you were closer to the latter, if I recall the Discord chat.
I was not very happy about this guy because, okay, so this
first of all, he's a Canadian, so shut up. Canadians aren't allowed to talk.
Yeah.
Hashtag
clean your exit wound, Canada. Because we're gonna execute you with the. Well, I gotta find that one. That was a Lizard King thing where he basically said, "Hey man, if you where are we at here?"
Nah, bro, that one was me.
Was that you?
Yeah, I said I was personally going to execute Canada execution style. And I said, "Clean your exit wound, Mr. Peterson."
Yeah. Okay, well that was good.
Thank you.
That was the best. That was great. Yeah. So like, if I get elected, I'm going to personally headshot Canada, the whole country, because this is America, and that's what we do.
Right, then we're going to take their word.
Yeah. So basically, Jordan Peterson, one of the things I got in his defense was that he's a boomer and he's not exactly hip to this kind of shit. And then another one is that where is it? He has radiant charisma and he was not really understanding people on the ground or something like that. Let me find it.
That one was Fox. He was saying the dude's got great charisma, got some. It's done a lot for him, and it failed him in this particular case.
He's trying to bridge the gap between the two people, and all the thinkers in his community are like, "Hey man, how do we compromise between what these guys want and what those guys want, right?" And I was saying something along the lines of,
Fox was right about that. That's basically Jordan Peterson's project.
It is very convenient that the compromise is, okay, you let this guy's name get destroyed, you let him get confirmed, and then he immediately gives up on it so that the left gets everything they want with no actual real concessions or any negative effects on their side. Like, it was exclusively one-sided there.
Right. And at a very odd time.
And at a very weird timing. Like, he did not talk about this for a while, because I have him on Twitter. So he just randomly, like, out of the blue, being like, "Hey, if this guy actually does win, though, he should probably not." I'm just saying. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe you should surrender.
Yeah, it's like, have you thought about just giving in to the leftist mob smears to clear your name and just, all the things that I haven't done in the past 30 years of my career? And
it says something like, maybe white people should just die. If everybody like, wait, hang on.
Excuse me?
Hang on.
Yeah.
This is an awful strange time for you to change positions on that question.
It's a weird timing for you to suddenly be like, "Hey guys, fellow free thinkers, we should probably do what the people say we should do. We should, I for one welcome our new benevolent overlords. It's like, what? I thought you were the anti-overlord guy. I'm just trying to find a compromise between the people that really like overlords and the people that don't want to be ruled by them.
He's trying to go out there in the chaos and bring order.
So it's so I was of the opinion of fuck that guy, and the reason is because he is too smart for that not to be a deliberate thing. And I know like Vox and different people are like, he's not that smart. He may not be the smartest dude, but he has marketing savvy, and he has a track record of successfully resisting this stuff by going in the exact opposite direction from what he's saying right now.
Right. So it would be odd if he had not learned any sort of lesson from that, given that that was something that he said and did, and successfully many times.
This is like a dude that's been through 3 car wrecks by wearing his seatbelt, saying, "Hey, you know what? Today, when these guys are trying to cut your brake lines, you probably don't need a seatbelt. You'll get thrown clear of the crash." And you're like, "Excuse me? Huh? Wait, what's this about cutting brake lines?"
So, question for you. Given all the timing and your belief that he's not actually that stupid, which, that's a matter of definitions and situations here, I think. But you think he's controlled opposition? Real quick.
At the time I was mad and I was saying something like, it's really weird for the timing. Like, you don't just randomly say that unless you get marching orders. You know what I mean? Like, I've watched people, and you see this where everybody was like, this dude is 100% a rapist and he has 800 credible accusations. And then you just see a list of verified Twitter check marks and different media people being credible accusations all the time. They get the message, they repeat the message, that's their whole job, right? Here is the headline. You can write whatever article you want so long as the headline and the conclusion say what we want you to say.
Yeah.
So watching this go from he's totally guilty to, well, he's sure pissed off that we tried to destroy his life, so I don't think he can be a Supreme Court justice. He sounds butthurt. He's too butthurt to govern. And
yeah.
Everybody doing that at the same time, and then right at the end of everybody doing this at the same time, it's like when people are pulling out every possible stop they have, suddenly Kermit the fucking Frog is like, "Hey guys, have you thought that if you kill your enemies, they win? You should surrender so that you have the moral high ground, cause just asking. I'm just trying to find a path through these mutually exclusive things." And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think he's necessarily 100% controlled opposition. He definitely is not sincere. He's a really good actor, and he's really good at marketing, and he's really good with his branding and messaging. And he's made a lot of money from that, and good for him. Because this is America, and we respect that kind of shit.
All right, but hang on. Do you think that where do you think his messages come from, though? I think a lot of people would not say that he didn't write maps of meeting himself or was not fed that information. Like, this is the narrative that you're going to push on the world now. But
I don't think anybody but him came up with the lobster thing, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, that would be another good one. It's like he probably wrote his own book. So we're not just talking about like Walter Cronkite or something.
Okay, let me put it this way. I was reading something from Steve Saylor about kind of the Bush era policies that led to the housing bubble bursting.
Yeah.
Where basically what happened was Bush said, we're going to have minority homeowners. You better lend to them one way or another, right? And that was kind of the attitude and the policy. And so people that go, I don't know about this, they kind of don't pay their bills. Those people didn't get government loans. They didn't get access to credit. And their banks went under because they got kind of starved.
Yep.
And the people that are like, oh man, you know what? I totally believe you. I really, honestly, 100% think that we need more minority stuff. I'm going to lend out everything I got. Those people got more credit. And it
whether
wasn't...
they were true or con men,
so
those were the ones.
the idea is that it's a Darwinian process. So you don't have to make the conscious decision. You just has to be the only one that happened to make this decision. Everyone else got weeded out. Maybe there were people on both sides of this fence. You're the only one left, right?
Yeah.
So some of these people have the luxury of actually believing that these people could pay their loans back. And then some of these people were like, hell, we can make money off of this. Sure, whatever, boss. You know?
I think in this case, he was just... Okay, I chalk this particular mistake up to
hold on. What I'm saying is he doesn't have to consciously be controlled opposition or get official marching orders, right?
Right.
He just has to be the kind of person that, like, he's the intellectual dark web. He likes the media attention. He likes the branding and everything, and he likes, I don't know 100% about it, right? I'm just some guy in a room somewhere. But if you're a dude that knows how to make money, he has written sales letters, he has Patreons, he has products that he's marketed, he's done business stuff on this, he got the hair plugs like you said. This is a guy that knows how to consciously manage his image. You don't randomly say things when you're at the level of he is of consciously managing his image and his brand, and specifically being like, I can't talk about the Jews because it'd be bad for me personally.
Yeah, and that's why I lean toward him being. I mean, it wouldn't be correct to say that he was under duress, but I mean, like, he was under social pressure, I think, on this one to break in a direction that would be bad for him.
Mm-hmm. So, like, he's a leftist, and he hit a critical mass of pressure that even he couldn't ignore. So he's like, hey, guys, I know all you guys are kind of where my money's coming from, but where my friends are coming from, they're saying you should probably back down on this one. Can we compromise by you losing and them winning? No! Okay.
Oh, you think he's not being paid to be in the intellectual dark web? I bet you he's drawing a paycheck for that.
I mean, he's making money out of being the official media opposition. He's definitely getting media spots. He's in the circles. But it's like...
I think that's so...
Maybe he gets grant money from somewhere. I mean, if he gets grant money from Soros, then there you go. Like a Soros-connected nonprofit or something.
I wouldn't be surprised if Shapiro and that crowd are actually getting funded by Soros.
Shapiro, 100%.
But, like...
From something.
Shapiro and Peterson, I think that was probably the major pivot between what he was, which... I mean, you're right. He's a leftist. He believes in that shit, and it's not hard for him to go from A to B logically. First of all, if that's where, according to his own moral pragmatism, he should go because the truth is what's good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But also just because it's a logically coherent position for him to stake out.
Yeah.
But I think that the incentives changed for him because he's actually on the payroll of Jews now.
So you're saying he's literally paid by Zionists or the Jews or somebody, the Soros.
I would be more surprised if he's not.
He's drawing checks from somebody, and that's why he's like, shit, I gotta say something about this, don't I?
Well, it's a combination of that. I think he's an emotionally weak person and is easily influenced by good manipulators. Like, SJWs are terrible manipulators, right? Because he's a disagreeable person.
Right, they're screaming at you until you comply, and he's stubborn. Maybe.
Yeah, so his reaction to that, and he's got kind of a rough background, so his reaction to that is going to be, fuck you.
So you're saying Jews being like, oh, you're so smart, and you're so important, and look at how nice your suit is, and, let's be friends, and here, let me give you a check, because I think your work is valuable. Oh, man, it sure is a shame about this other stuff. This sucks, doesn't it? And then he might start... Yeah. He might start going, yeah, you know what? It does suck, doesn't it? Friend.
Yeah. Best friends forever. Just, I'm thinking of you put any boomer next to Ben Shapiro, and they're going to think he's the smartest guy in the room, right?
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, so you combine all these things with his generally weak temperament, as opposed to, because, he's still a disagreeable person.
So he got gamed, you're saying?
Yeah, I think he got... I think he's been caged in.
Mm-hmm.
And like his definition of truth literally is that whatever is good for you is the true thing. And I mean, his refrain is "Don't say anything that makes you weak," right?
Yeah.
So that definitely criticizes Jews.
Oh yeah, that definitely applies there, doesn't it?
Yeah. But in this particular case, like he was going against what's good for him because, like you said, they're pulling out all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the Supreme Court. This is kind of a big deal. This is like, and aside from that, it's just a huge battleground to decide. I'm trying to think of an analogy from an actual battle, but I don't know history. But it was kind of like everybody brought everything that they had on either side. So you have the Trump side coming in with the best of their most intelligent plans, really, because they generally don't have a lot of like people that they can call upon because the right is so fractured.
Yeah.
But whoever is running that Trump business is fucking smart.
Mm-hmm.
Like they knew this was going to happen, and they picked Kavanaugh, who actually is so clean that he thought it would be a good idea to tell everybody he was a virgin. Until he was like 35 or some shit.
Which that doesn't even sound right to me.
So,
but
the Fashion Nation guys did a deep dive on him, actually. Jazz Hands and them.
Mm-hmm.
And all they could find was a weird thing with some baseball tickets, which...
Oh, yeah, where he borrowed money to buy baseball tickets and then paid off the money to buy baseball tickets.
Yeah, so there might have been something going on there, but the fact that he went through 6 FBI...
He's an actual good dude, as far as following the law.
Yeah, at least he's clean. Like, they couldn't find shit on him. And if you figure, like, this is a guy in Washington, D.C. for his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't find one time where he, like, did coke. Like, no affairs.
I see what you mean.
To speak ill of his character. Yeah, that's...
It's D.C., for goodness sake. He's got to do something. Everybody's fucking dirty in D.C. What do you mean you don't have anything? What do you mean he's not stepping down because we called him a racist? What do you mean we've got to have actual evidence for this? Oh, shit, we got to have actual evidence for this guy. Hold on.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it was going.
So, and yeah, they saw that coming, and it was a mess. It was a shit show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we did it. By we, of course, I mean that I was involved in the victory. That's 100% wrong, but whatever. I'm on board the Trump train still.
I voted for boot off the neck long enough to get my life together. And I've gotten a little bit more than that. I'm happy with what we have.
I just pissed off like a bunch of people. I'm gonna get a call from MM. Like, you know Trump. This. I don't know shit. Why are you asking me that?
No, Trump's the best guy. He's gonna be king. Trump Trump has nothing wrong with him, actually, when you think about it.
He never did anything wrong, is the thing. Trump did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
You want to call it soon?
I voted for this guy. Yeah, we can do it for pretty soon. It's I think we're going on 2 hours now.
All
if we only do 15 minutes, though, I might have to just throw this all in the same thing. But that's fine.
I'd be fine with it.
Yeah. But that's more or less what's going on in the world past this time. I do want to say I was really happy with the hurricanes, and I'll tell you what I mean by that, because that sounds wrong now that I say it out loud. So I evacuated in one of these, and do you know how many people were standing on random intersections and street corners going, "You can't go down this street," and going, "Nuh-uh"? There were a lot of people. Just to get 5 people to drive to a Wendy's is its own logistical challenge, let alone giving them ideas of where they're going after that. But I was impressed with the government's response to this hurricane. in
good to know.
in the States. Like, I was like, that's a lot of people, and they're really good at just funneling traffic in where it's supposed to be. And holy cow, this is very, very neat right now. It's very organized, huh? There are just all sorts of people, police officers and National Guard or people in camo just standing, putting out cones, making sure people are not going down the places they're not supposed to be in. It's like, this is what competence smells like.
All right, I'm going to turn this into a vast conspiracy theory.
All right.
They were keeping away from the aliens, which were actually causing that with their warp drive.
Oh, that wasn't even it. Look, man, the hurricane was on 9/11, right? It was in It was in that time. It was in that time frame. I'm thinking that the shadow government actually created the hurricane with Chinese weather machines to distract people from digging in to 9/11 on the anniversary, because people were going to do that. We were going to have a jet fuel, doesn't melt steel beams kind of telethon. But then we had the hurricane, and everybody had to deal with that.
Did you know that HARP was built on the same day as 9/11?
What was?
HARP, I think it's a geological control machine which causes earthquakes.
Oh, shit.
With the president. Nikola Tesla designed it.
That's 100%. That's what they used to take out the localized earthquakes. It makes sense. They didn't even need the C4. That's what took down the Twin Towers.
Yep. That's the real truth. Read about it. Read a book.
Yeah. Open your mind, man. Do the research. The truth is out there. I'm waving my hand.
The takeaway, I guess, is that the East Coast is a little better organized than Puerto Rico.
Yes. The Steve Saylor guy was talking about how Puerto Rico is being deliberately mismanaged to have people turn Florida blue. And it's like, damn. That sucks, man. But
you mean to drive immigration?
Yeah. So Puerto Rico is not, their disaster recovery is not good at all. So people flee Puerto Rico to go to Florida and some of these southern states and change certain districts. And
I'd be surprised if it's deliberately mismanaged, because he's always the Ice Steve bro. He's always talking about how bad their schools are too. Like, surprised.
Well,
okay, you correct for race, and Puerto Rico is still an outlier.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, we could probably have done something about that, especially if they're our territory that we kind of sort of govern. Like, if the U.S. took an interest in managing Puerto Rico, they could probably set those schools up at least. But it mysteriously doesn't happen.
Could just be that we don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm. So, but either way, it's definitely better than Puerto Rico. I'm really happy with our disaster response teams. Thank you, emergency professionals and all that good stuff. We love our cops. We love cops here.
And thanks, Dad.
And thanks, dads.
Dads and the National Guard make this podcast possible.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that dads are exclusively the reason behind that hurricane response success type thing.
Probably.
And the National Guard.
Like anybody that's worth anything is usually dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's like, who's setting up your router? Not your teenage daughter. I don't care what the car insurance commercials tell you. Teenage daughter just can't set up shit. His dad's setting up routers.
Yeah, the bedrock of civilization. They are, like, what's the point of being a soldier if you're not fighting for something?
Yeah, dads, the other white meat. Dads, it's what's for dinner. I might be.
All right, this is getting out of hand.
Combining these here. Okay.
It's also true, but now we're getting into black pill territory.
Okay.
The white man, it's what's for dinner.
Oh shit.
Oh no. We were trying to be all.
We love you, white man. Okay. So, I like ending things on a silly note. I think that counts. So you good to call it here?
Yeah, and then we could go for a little bit.
Yeah, that works. That sounds good. Do you want to do next Sunday for just a regular talk or for a podcast or something?
Yes, please. I would like to do next Sunday
All right. Signing off here. You guys
for a regular talk.
stay classy, San Diego. See you later, Space Cowboy. Bye-bye.